In this episode, Gillan and Riggs.
Good evening. A bit of a special album for me, this one tonight, because it's one from right at the beginning. I've probably told the story many times before about when I sort of got into music. It was like those first 2 or 3 years of buying the back catalogues of everybody up and everything, and finding things in record shops and all that sort of stuff. Because there was no internet and everything those days, and it was a real voyage of discovery. Now, I discovered this album in a record shop in Rugby called Berwick's, which was the #1 record shop to go to. If you hadn't got a little red Berwick's carrier bag in your hand when you're walking around the town, you weren't a cool dude. You know, you could go to Boots and places to buy your records, but you went to Berwick's with the logo on the front, which I'll see if I can find one somewhere and stick it on. There's a picture somewhere with the owl and the 2 records for eyes. Pretty. Anyway, this must have been 1981, I would guess, early on in 1981. And of course, I'd sort of like got into the purple side of things and all that sort of thing in very, very early 1980, late 1979. So it was a case of buying up all the albums. You saw them a lot of the time second hand, which means, because in those days nobody really knew records were going to be worth anything. So it was me that I managed to pick up quite a lot of first pressings of those 70s albums for pence, because nobody thought they were going to be worth anything. Anyway, I went into town one day and decided, right, I'm going to buy a couple of records today. I've just got a list of ones I'm still going to get yet. So it was a case of when you saw something that was on offer, or something that was a bit cheaper, you bought it and you think, well, I need this album, I need that album, I need the other. I can almost still remember the order in which I bought all the Purple and Gillan and Rainbow and stuff albums in prior to when, in 1981, I started buying them on the day they came out. Now, I bought this album, which has remained one of my favourites ever since, Gillan Mr Universe. It's a wonderful, wonderful album. I bought this from the same day I bought Burn. Now, can you imagine what that must have been like? You people who are a little bit older than me, like the Man in the Attic, would have had Burn since it came out, and then would have bought this 5 years later. It's amazing that it was only 5 years between Burn and this. I know Burn has got absolutely nothing to do with this, apart from the fact that it's Deep Purple and England's in Deep Purple, but they are 2 very important albums to Deep Purple, and I bought them both on the same day. Now, I can't remember which one I played first. I've got a feeling that I would have played Burn first because he was older. And that's the sort of Anaraki type thing I do. I look at 1979, 1974, I'll play the 74 album first. But what I do know is that if I could go back in time and see myself on that night playing these albums on my tatty little stereo thing I'd got at the time, and see what my face must have been like, because this and Burn, I really should do the 2 together as a joint review. But it's the random album generator game, so I can't do that, and it would take too long. They're probably both in my top 20 albums of all time, and I bought them both on the same day. It's brilliant, and I still, today, couldn't tell you which one I prefer. One day I prefer this one, another day I prefer Burn. But this is fantastic. I mean, the cover is just so cool, isn't it? And it's like, there's a story about when they took the photograph that they wanted to keep stepping backwards and backwards to get nearer and nearer to the sea, and that he nearly fell in the sea. But I don't know whether that's one of Ian Gillan's tall tales, or whether it's actually true, but it's quite possibly right. Now, this is Mr Universe, right? Now, this is the UK version of Mr Universe, which came out on Acrobat, the Acrobat label, which we've spoken about before. So I really love their little label. I'll show you the label, because the label is pretty good. In the cover as well, with this, plus the record being put in a nice polyline sleeve. And there you can see it, look, the Acrobat label. I don't love that, I just think it's cool. Nice little later. And they didn't put out many albums after about because they went spectacularly bust not long after this came out. Now, what happened, as I'm sure everybody knows, but just for those that don't, is that when Ian Gillan left East Purple, he didn't have anything to do with music for a bit, and he got involved in motorbike shops and hotels and all sorts of things. Then he came back with the Ian Gillan Band, which was a real sort of jazz rock type thing, and it was great. I love those Ian Gillan Band albums. But I think then when Ian Gillan maybe saw that the tide was turning back to rock with a new wave of British heavy metal and all that sort of stuff, he probably thought, well, no, I'm getting a bit fed up of 15-minute versions of Woman from Tokyo now. Maybe it's time to get back to my roots sort of thing, doing the rock stuff, because don't forget, Ian Gillan was a big Elvis fan. Big difference to me, anyway, from Ian Gillan and some of the other vocalists like Paul Rodgers and your David Coverdale and all them. They sort of came from a blues, soul sort of background. That's what they were listening to. Whereas Ian Gillan was listening to Elvis Presley, and you can tell that, can't you, from the way he sings. And it's good because he makes them so different, with the different styles and all that type of thing. So he probably then thought, well, I want to go back to punchy 3-minute songs where I can jump about and be whatever. So the band was sort of transformed. Now, at that point then, their record deal with Ireland had run out, and they couldn't get a deal anywhere. They decided to change the name to just Gillan, drop the Ian band bit, and just be called Gillan, which was punchier. But they hadn't got a record deal. So they put out something which is now referred to as the Japanese album. Should have got the Japanese album, that shouldn't I? To sort of to show you to compare it. In fact, hold on a second. Right, here's the Japanese album, just called Gillan, referred to by Gillan fans as the Japanese album. Now, this is supposed to be a review of Mr Universe. What's he waffling on about an album called Gillan for? Well, when this came out in Japan, it was called Gillan. When they released their next album in Japan, that was called Mr Universe, and here it is. As you can see, it's a totally different cover. As you can see, I only paid £6 for this. Can you believe that? £6 for a Japanese copy of Mr Universe with the inners and all that sort of stuff down there. Anyway, the point of the matter is, these two albums and a few new tracks sort of became this. Because, let's take a look. On the Japanese version of Mr Universe, you've got Vengeance, which is on the UK one. You've got Mr Universe, which is on it as well, and She Tears Me Down. All those three tracks were on Mr Universe. There was then a track called Your Sister's on My List. Now that wasn't on the UK version, and that ended up as a B-side. I can't remember what it was a B-side to, but it only came out as a B-side. Then you've got a track called Street Theatre, which didn't come on there either. You've got Roller and Puget Sound, which were on here, and Move with the Times, which was on this one but wasn't on this one. And then to make things even more confusing, you got Sleeping on the Job, which was on this, didn't make it onto this, but made it on the Gillan album after, called Glory Road. Are you keeping up with me? I'm going to ask questions about all this sort of stuff later. So, now you're going to say to me, well, what's that got to do with the Japanese album? Let's go back to the Japanese album. First track on the Japanese album is called Second Sight, with a second track called Secret of the Dance. Okay, Mr Universe. Second Sight and Secret of the Dance right here. Then you've got I'm Your Man. Then you've got Dead of Night and Fighting Man, both of which are on the UK version of Mr Universe. Can you keep it up? Then you go to side 2 of Gillan, the Japanese album, and you've got Message in a Bottle. Message in a Bottle is on the UK version of Mr Universe. Then you've got Not Weird Enough, which weirdly isn't on anything. Then you've got a thing called Bringing Joanna Back and Abbey of Thelema. Now they turned up, or at least one of them did, on the next album after this, but not on the album itself, but on the free album that they gave away with the first pressing, which was called For Gillan Fans Only. All mightily confusing. And then Back in the Game was the last track on this, and I'm pretty sure that turned up as a B-side or on an EP or something later on. So what you've got really here is you've got Gillan the Japanese album, you've got Mr Universe the UK album, and then the one that came out in between them, Mr Universe the Japanese version, which are sort of like 3 albums into 2, if you like, or whatever. There's probably 2 albums worth of stuff mixed in for 3 albums there. So they're sort of scattered around enough you can actually listen to them one after the other and not think, I've heard that already, I'm fed up with it. And I think some of them may be slightly different mixes, I don't know, might be different versions even, I'm not sure. But it's a great thing. And then just to make things even more interesting, those of you that are eagle-eyed may have noticed that this version of the UK album isn't the same version I was holding up at the start of the video, because I put that down there. This one is a special one that came out for Record Collector Day or something, Record Store Day, 40th Anniversary Edition, 2019. Same cover, same tracks as the UK version, same inner as the UK version, but glorious red and blue vinyl, which is great, really nice. So there you go. That's the sort of story, if you like, behind where all the tracks came from and all that sort of stuff. But then, what's it like? Well, I think it's the best Gillan album for the lot. We'll concentrate on the UK one. The second side is obviously a instrumental thing. Colin Townsend sort of leads into the first track, Secret Acts, which just starts at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It's like it's fast, it's heavy, it's fantastic. And She Tears Me Down, well, that's got the light and shade and all that sort of stuff. And Roller is another one of those almost punk rock rocket songs. Then you've got Mr Universe. Now, Mr Universe started life as an episode 6 song right back in the late 60s, just to make things even more confusing for everybody. So you can go back to there for the first version of that. This one is obviously very different to the episode 6 version. Then side 2 kicks off with Vengeance, which is everybody's a powerful track, brilliant live. And then into Puget Sound, which is one of my favourites. I don't know why, it's pretty simple, straightforward sort of song, but I just love it. There's some great lyrics in it, there's some great little couplets in it and all sorts of things, and that's great. Then you get Dead of Night, which is another fast-paced thing with Message in a Bottle, which again is brilliant, with Gillan doing some of his Scottish accent stuff with one bottle a day of Scotland's finest. I'm not even attempt to do the Scottish version. And then to finish it all off, you've got Fighting Man. Now I'm going to throw Fighting Man in as one of Ian Gillan's best ever vocals. People will turn around to you and they will say his best ever vocal was on the Jesus Christ Superstar track, Gethsemane, I think it's called. Other people like me will say to show people what Gillan is, Child in Time does that because it shows all the range of how it can be so delicate and quite how it can be so powerful. This Fighting Man is a pure, proper singing song, and it's got so much emotion and so much energy in it. I think it's got to be in his top 3 or 4 ever vocal performances. It's worth buying it just for that one track on its own. It's wonderful. It really is fantastic. And then one last little bit, Vengeance came out as a single, and the B-side of the single was a live in the studio version of Smoke on the Water. Now, I think that's probably been added to the CD version of this. I'm not even going to attempt to go into the CD world of this, because you think there's a lot of vinyl versions of it. There's quite a few CD versions of it kicking around as well. Some of them have got extra tracks, some of them haven't got the same extra tracks. But I think at least one of them has got the 8 minutes, I think, or 7.5 minutes or something, version of Smoke on the Water, recorded live in the studio, and it just starts off with a complete wall of noise and stuff on the guitar from Bernie Torme. It's absolutely fantastic. And I remember when I got the single, it played at 33 and a third. The A side played at 45 and the B side played at 33 and a third. I didn't know this, put it on. I thought, blimey, this is fast. And then, of course, when the singing started, you realise you got it on the wrong speed. It's worth buying a CD version just for that, unless you can track down a copy of the single. I've also got again, I should have dug out a 4-track sampler for this, Acrobat promo label as well, which is a nice thing to have. But yeah, this is my go-to favourite Gillan album. I think it's got the best Gillan album cover. It's probably got the best range of tracks. And one of the things that happens with, I've had this conversation with loads and loads of people over the years. Why were Gillan never put in the same bracket as the other spin-off band, Whitesnake and Rainbow? They were like, for those of us around at the time, they were strutting around like rock gods, whereas Ian Gillan was playing smaller places and he was going down the pub before the gig started, and he just seemed like a normal bloke. He'd be going on your local news programme, sat there in his sheriff's badge before the gig talking about what he was doing, and he was far more accessible than Blackmore and Cordell were. Maybe Gillan knew what was going to be coming in years to come with the internet and the way you can talk to everyone now. I've also been lucky over the last 10, 15 years or so to be able to talk to Bernie Torme before he sadly died, John McCoy and Mick Underwood about these albums, just simply by posting things on blogs and on Facebook, and they've responded, and I've had some interesting chats with them about that. I know Mick Underwood isn't very well at the moment, so best wishes to him. I'm hoping that one day I'll maybe get to sit down and we can persuade John McCoy to come in and tell us some stories. That would be good. I did at one point ask Mick Underwood what he thought of the production of some of these albums, because especially later on I didn't think the production was all that brilliant. This one I think is probably okay. Said that none of them had any problem with it. It was down to my ears. So anyway, that's that. So if anybody's got any ideas, why do you think that the Gillan, the band, weren't spoken of in the same way as Whitesnake and Rainbow were? Because they were equally as good, and the albums are equally as good. Some people say that the gigs were probably a little bit more raucous and a bit too loud and whatever. They did put out a lot of stuff. In the space of like 3 years or so, they put out about 4 albums, I think, and there were singles coming out every 5 minutes. So maybe it was the sort of quantity that put people off. I don't know. Maybe it was the fact that they looked so different, didn't they? And I just liked all that anyway. I thought it was great. They're a great band. It was very sort of sad the way it all fell apart at the end, but we don't need to go into that now because we're talking about this. So if you know Ian Gillan, if you know Deep Purple, and you've never bothered with these albums from the late 70s and early 80s, dig them out. They're good. They're well worth getting. There's plenty of opportunity to get them now because they're available on CDs. There's 2 or 3 different issues on CD, and you can pick this red and blue record store day edition up. You can pick this up still for 20 quid, probably less than that. It's not difficult to get hold of. It's well worth getting. The Japanese pressings might be a little bit harder to get hold of, but again, you might be able to get them on CD now. But for me, this is my favourite Gillan album, and I bought it on the same day as I bought Burn by Deep Purple, which is crazy when I think about it. It doesn't make sense to me that I could possibly have done that, but I did. I can remember it. And when Burn comes out on a random album generator game, which hopefully we'll do one day, we will then give a nod to this album again at the same time. But in the meantime, if you get a chance, grab hold of this. Also worth noting as well, this was the old logo where the G went through the L's. The logo after that, the top of the G didn't go through. That actually is Ian Gillan's sort of signature. And Normally the G doesn't go to the L, just in case anybody tries to flog you an autograph copy. That's sort of what you're looking for. Anyway, there we go. I've rambled on a bit, but I can't help it because this is one of my favourites. And as Stephen the Man in the Attic says regularly, if he'd only got 20 albums to take on a desert island, the amount of time I've known him, he's already up to about 42 of those 25 albums he can take on a desert island. But if I could only take 20 albums on a desert island, this would definitely be one of them. And I'll take the UK version as well. As much as I like the Japanese version and I like the Gillan album as well, this one is the one to go for. So, Gillan Mr Universe, 1979. Cracking album.
The Man in the Attic.
Hello everyone in Custard Land. It's the Man in the Attic again. What album is it? It's this one. And it's just called plain and simply Reeks. Now I know that is a terrible, terrible cover. What that's all about, I don't know. Sling something together, lads, we need a cover. Okay. And that's it, and that's what they came up with. Some rockets and a fierce looking dog. You know, I don't know. But anyway, in the back of the cover, a more conventional photograph of the band involved, a four-piece band. This was 1982, this album. And how did I come across this? Why did I buy it? Well, I heard track 2 of side 1, which is called One Night Affairs, one evening on the good old Friday Rock Show with Tommy Vance. Thought, like that's got a real hook to it, really good. And I had it on tape and used to play it quite a bit, and sort of looked around for the album, couldn't find it, and that was in the days, of course, before eBay, etc. And I did come across it eventually in, I think, probably about 83, something like that, 84 maybe, up Portobello Road, in the market, right at the end of it, in Goulburn Road. Came across this on a stall, and I think I paid the princely sum of £2, maximum £2 for it. And so, who are Riggs? Well, principally, they are named after this guy here, Jerry Riggs, who's lead guitar, lead vocals, and he is backed by Jeremy Graff on guitar and vocals, Stephen Roy Carlisle on drums and vocals, David Riderick on bass and vocals. And what kind of music is this? Well, it's good, really, really good. Early 80s hard rock. They're an American band, and they were produced and engineered by none other than Andy Johns. Now, if you've got a record collection, you have got an Andy Johns engineered or produced album in it somewhere. You're talking Led Zeppelin, Humble Pie, lots of other artists. I mean, it is a seamless plethora of stuff produced by Andy Johns. It's great. And so you can guarantee that this album has a good sound. It's full of great crunchy guitars, really good drum sound. And so what happened to Riggs? Well, precisely nothing, sadly. But the album is really, really good. It's got a great commercial sound to it, loads of hooks in the songs. It's 10 tracks, and I don't think there's a bad one on it. Ready or Not, the opening track on side 1, would be a classic concert opener. Now, Jerry Riggs, in 1983, went on to play with Pat Travers, and was with the Pat Travers band as co-guitar player for around 10 years, up until 93. And then since then, every now and again, Riggs might get back together for a one-off. And then I read since 2019, he's been touring with 38 Special, the southern rock band 38 Special as a guitarist. He is a really, really good guitar player and a really, really good singer. Let's say 10 tracks on this album. Terrible cover again. 10 tracks, and every one of them's really strong. Ready or Not, great opener. One Night Affairs, full of hooks. Over and Over, a slower song with a little bit of acoustic picking in it. Great. Take It Off, which is a good rocker. And Writing on the Wall, again, full of brilliant hooks. And then side 2, we've got Depending on Love, another song full of great choruses, hooks. Girls on the Loose, Christine, which is another really good song. Don't Walk Away, and the closing track is called Too Strong. This, sadly, was the only album they ever produced. But before this album, and it showed you that they moved in quite good name circles. They had 2 tracks on a compilation album for a film, and it was this one, Heavy Metal. I don't know if any of you have ever been to see this. I went to see it in the early 80s, and it was out in 81. And I mean, you got 2 tracks from Riggs on this, neither of which are on the Andy Johns produced album, but the 2 tracks on this album were produced by none other than Roy Thomas Baker, Queen's producer. And and also on the Heavy Metal album, you've got Black Sabbath, Blue Oyster Cult, Cheap Trick, Donald Fagen, Devo, Don Felder, Grand Funk Railroad, Sammy Hagar, Journey, Nazareth, Stevie Nicks and Trust. So they moved in good company. I would urge you, if you ever see the Riggs album, at a record fair or wherever, and it kind of appears now and again. I mean, obviously not a lot of copies because it didn't sell very well. I'd buy it. If you can pick it up for a tenner or less, you won't be disappointed in it. It's as I said, it's got a great sound. Andy Johns knew how to get a good sound out of things. Great drum sound, lovely crunchy guitars, good vocals, good harmonies. All the band sing, so it's full of really good stuff. So yeah, I'd highly recommend it. I call it a rare album because, again, look, it didn't sell very well, but worth getting. So yes, and yeah, probably worth looking up some of the stuff that Jerry Riggs did with Pat Travers. I mean, Pat Travers is another one. He weren't as big probably as he should have been, and certainly I think if the songs on this album had appeared on something, say by Bon Jovi, it would have been massive. The songs are that good, they're up there with the best of Bon Jovi's anthemic rock stuff. Absolutely they are. So yeah, again, if you see it, go for it. And you can't get the full album on YouTube, but I know for a fact that Ready or Not is definitely on YouTube. So I will say, Martin, please find a link for Ready or Not and put it down here. I did share it once on our Crushed Custard group, and I think Writing on the Wall might also be out there also. So yeah, Riggs, another Man in the Attic recommendation. See you again soon.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe as this helps the channel to grow. Thank you for watching. See you again soon.